Securing the load on your flatbed trailer doesn't begin after cargo is loaded onto the deck. It begins with pre-trip planning. Before loading begins, review the shipping information to determine the type of load you'll be hauling and the weight of that load. This will enable you to develop a plan for how the weight will be distributed on the trailer, the types and number of tie-downs you'll need, and where those tie-downs will be placed and anchored. Also, if your trailer features a front end structure that will be in contact with your cargo, there are specific requirements for the height, width, and strength of the structure. So if the cargo will be up against this structure, be sure it meets the requirements for the specific cargo you'll be transporting. Two key concepts that you need to understand in order to develop a load securement plan are working load limit and aggregate working load limit. Yeah, I know you've heard them, but do you truly understand what they mean? Working load limit is the maximum load that may be applied to a component of a cargo securement system during normal service. If a heavier load is applied, the component could fail. The working load limit is usually assigned by the component manufacturer and may or may not be marked on the component. Let's look at a couple of examples. This 4-inch synthetic webbing has a working load limit of 5,400 pounds. In fact, it's marked right here. This chain has a working load limit of 4,700 pounds. This is based on the chain being marked with G70, indicating that it's a grade 70 transport chain, and 5/16, indicating the size. For any securement device that's not marked by the manufacturer with the working load limit, or on which the markings are no longer visible, you must determine the working load limit by consulting the regulations or information provided by your carrier. Here's a tip. If you're driving in Canada, you should be aware that if the working load limit is not marked on the device, that device can't be counted in calculating the aggregate working load limit. As with our G70 chain, some manufacturers use codes or symbols to indicate the working load limit of their devices, rather than marking them in pounds or kilograms. If you don't understand the codes, contact someone at your company who does before you rely on the device. Never use a securement device based on your own or anybody else's best guess. Now let's consider the aggregate working load limit, which is the combined load carrying capacity of a group of tie-down devices. This will involve a little math, so let's look at an example. This box is secured to the trailer with 2 straps made of 4-inch synthetic webbing. They're not marked with a working load limit. So, according to the table in the regs at section 393.108, these straps are given a working load limit of 4,000 pounds. Now, here's a key concept. Determining the aggregate working load limit depends on how the webbing is used to secure the load. In this example, the webbing is attached to an anchor on the trailer, routed over the cargo, and attached to another anchor point on the other side of the trailer. This is called an indirect tie-down because the webbing is not attached directly to the cargo, and the ends are attached to the opposite sides of the trailer. With this setup, you calculate the aggregate working load limit by adding together the full working load limits of all the indirect tie-down devices. In our example, that's 4,000 plus 4,000, so the aggregate working load limit is 8,000 pounds. Now let's change up our example a little. Instead of attaching the webbing to anchors on either side of the trailer, we'll attach one end of each strap directly to an attachment point on the cargo itself, and the other end to an anchor on the trailer. Or we attach both ends of the securement device to the same side of the trailer. This is called a direct tie-down because the tie-down device is attached directly to the cargo. It's also considered direct because the tie-down is pulling the cargo toward the side of the trailer rather than down onto the trailer. Using this setup, we calculate the aggregate working load limit by adding together half, or 50%, of the working load limit of each tie-down. With these straps, that's 2,000 plus 2,000, for an aggregate working load limit of 4,000 pounds. How do you use this information? Well, under the regs, the aggregate working load limit must equal at least half or 50% of the weight of the cargo being secured. In our first example, using the indirect tie-down method, our two 4,000-pound straps could secure a load of up to 16,000 pounds. In our second example, using the direct tie-down method, our two 4,000-pound straps could be used to secure a load of up to 8,000 pounds. In other words, we'd need twice as many direct tie-downs to secure as much cargo as our indirect tie-downs. What can we take away from all this? Knowing the weight of your cargo is critical to determining both the restraining capacity or strength and number of tie-downs you're required to use, and the way in which you use those tie-downs to secure the cargo. Now you need to figure out whether you might need additional tie-downs due to the overall size of the cargo and its position on the trailer. So, let's consider positioning, specifically whether the cargo is prevented from moving forward.